So you want to be the head coach that wins the Super Bowl in Houston, Texas this year. Or maybe you just be happy being the offensive coordinator or the quarterback coach on the biggest stage in professional football. But it's a pretty competitive arena for those in the coaching ranks of the NFL. Right now, there are over 700 individuals working as professional football coaches in the National Football League. And most will never see the pinnacle of success that is the Super Bowl. They'll bounce around from city to city, from job to job, moving their families from home to home and school to school in an endless attempt to find that one city or staff that will give them one more chance. But there are also coaches that will get lucky. Whether from college or after long years of obscurity, they're able to capitalize on good mentorship and hard work to make piles and piles of money and to become the next hot coaching commodity that is so sought after by general managers in today's NFL. The 43, the 46, the 52, or the hybrid defense, what's the magic formula for success? And is it easier to be part of a well-established coaching tree, or can you rise above your competition with passion and perseverance alone? Who are these men the Raiders have put in the position to lead our franchise at the gate this year? That's the topic for tonight, and this is the Will to Win.
That would burn brightest here is the will to win. Is the will to win. Is the will to win.
Your commitment to excellence and your will to win will endure forever. You were magnificent.
Let's go, boys. Let's go. Let's do our thing now.
The autumn wind is a pirate.
Clark feeling pressure in front of him. Has his man. It's Cooper. Cooper inside the 10. Into the end zone for the Raiders. Touchdown!
We're going to challenge you from the neck up this afternoon.
They're target a lot for the end zone for Roberts. He's got it! Touchdown! Raiders!
Within the first 5 to 10 plays of the game, the other team's quarterback must go down. And he must go down hard.
Sacked from behind by Khalil Mack.
Hello, I'm the Raider Pirate, and welcome to the Will to Win broadcast, coming to you live from our Los Angeles studio. As always, we'll be breaking down our show into 3 segments. A question and answer segment where you, the Raider Nation, will submit your questions to the Oakland Night. A State of the Raiders, where we'll discuss relevant topics that affect the team, the fan base, and football in general. And a draft biography, where we look at rookies that we all agree will have an impact in some fashion this year. Tonight's State of the Raiders is going to be looking at the coaching staff, so we hope that you enjoy that part of the show. Tonight I'm joined by the usual suspects, and they're excited to answer the questions that you want to know. Once again, this is only our opinion, but we are uniquely qualified to give you just that, our opinion. Let's meet them, shall we? The Oakland Knight is a co-founder and senior analyst of the Will to Win. Raider Lion is our senior international analyst from the United Kingdoms and our resident draft expert. Welcome to both of you. All right, well, let's begin with our first segment. Shall we, gentlemen? The Raider Nation has been kind enough to send us questions via text and email. If you would like to submit a question, you can reach us via email at thew2w@gmail.com. All right, let's take a look at our first question tonight from Raider J. Raider J writes, "Hey guys, this is Raider J. I want to know how unfair it would have been for NFL quarterbacks if the Houston Texans had taken Khalil Mack with the #1 overall pick in 2014. Him Vince Wilfork and J.J. Watt would have been literally a nightmare for quarterbacks, offensive coordinators, and NFL offenses, period. I'm glad he passed on him because of the school that he came from. Knight, what are your thoughts on that?
Wow, could you imagine that? Could you imagine J.J. Watt, Khalil Mack, Wilfork on one team? If you look at last year alone, J.J. Watt led the league in sacks, only to be followed up by Khalil Mack, who led going into the last week of the season, and that's when J.J. Watt made his move and passed up Khalil Mack. So they would have been having the two top pass rushers in the league had he gone there in 2014. That's a scary thought. But I believe there's more to this story. I believe that if Khalil Mack would have went to Houston, what we would have done with our first-round pick would be the bigger question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you remember, if you take a look, Khalil Mack went top 5 overall. Would that have affected the Derek Carr pick? Would the Raiders have come back up and would they have tried to trade down, I should say, and tried to take Carr earlier? Who would the second-round pick have been? And look, the Houston Texans passed on both Carr and Mack. I mean, that's an incredible thing. They passed on both a quarterback, a franchise caliber quarterback potentially, and a franchise caliber defensive end potentially. What are your thoughts on that? The fact that one football team passed up the two cornerstones of what is the resurgence of the Raiders?
Well, that's pretty easy for me, man. I believe in fate. And as you can see in this scenario, fate went our way. All reports showed that the Raiders, Reggie McKenzie, not Jack Del Rio, excuse me, I apologize, but Reggie McKenzie was really, really big on Derek Carr. So I figured Derek Carr was the pick if they would have traded down. As for myself, I was really huge on Aaron Donald. I was promoting Aaron Donald throughout the whole offseason, right before the draft. So I'm hoping that would have been the pick moving forward. I do believe that Jadeveon Clowney still would have been off the board. But if they would have traded down, there's a good possibility they would have took Carr at that point. There was even rumors and speculations, yeah, like you said, they were going to trade back into the first round late to make sure that they got Carr because they feared Houston. But Reggie stuck to his board. It all worked out, and we ended up with our two cornerstones to our franchise, our defensive player in Khalil Mack and our franchise quarterback, Derek Carr.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one that Houston is going to scratch their head about for a very long time. I mean, had they gotten Carr, they wouldn't have spent all the money they did this year going after someone like Osweiler. Had they gotten Khalil Mack, they wouldn't have been dealing with the injuries to Jadeveon Clowney and the lack of production. So I think they're going to probably scratch their head for a long time. Our next question comes from Raider Ronnie. There's been a lot of talk about how we will only be able to keep Carr or Mack on Facebook. Is this true? If so, I would prefer the Raiders keep a franchise quarterback, but losing Mack to teams like Denver or Kansas City would be a crushing blow. Who would you keep? By the way, your show is the bomb. Every show you guys do just keeps adding cool stuff. Go Raiders.
Well, I believe this is a great question, Pirate, because I mean, first, I want to answer this because I think this needs to be answered first and foremost. We are going to be able to keep both players, so I don't want nobody stressing out. But if it really had to come down to just us picking one, unfortunately, you have to go with Derek Carr. I've said it many times, many times. Defense wins championships, quarterbacks build dynasties, and I stay true to that motto. So Derek Carr would have to be the focal point. If you look at our history, just from the quarterback perspective, we had a great run in the 70s with the Mad Bomber. Then we got Kenny Stabler. Then we go into Jim Plunkett. I mean, all this would not been able to come to fruition if it wasn't for the great ability of Al Davis at the time to find these quarterbacks. But after Jim Plunkett, it's been a long road of ups and downs until we got Rich Gannon. And then we got Rich Gannon. He goes out. Then we go through numerous Aaron Brooks, from Aaron Brooks all the way to Marcus Tuiasosopo, Terrell Pryor, etc., etc. I mean, the search for a quarterback has been a nightmare for this franchise since Gannon. And when you get an opportunity to get a guy with Carr's ability, you can't let it walk. So if I had to choose just one, I would choose Carr. But never fear, we'll be able to keep both.
Yeah, and, you know, again, a franchise quarterback or franchise-style defensive end, and we're not even talking about franchise. We could potentially be talking about one of the best players in the league, a Lawrence Taylor type of player in Khalil Mack. As you've said, you know, before, he has the potential to be that. Not that we're comparing him to Lawrence Taylor, but both of those guys we'd be hard-pressed to lose. There's a lot of people out there that are saying, hey, you know what, you know, go ahead and keep Khalil Mack because they did bring in somebody like Connor Cook. Do you believe that that could be a possibility a couple of years down the line? Let's say Derek has some average seasons, that they may just decide to go ahead and go with somebody like Connor Cook for the future?
Well, that's the position that we're in right now, that I don't mind. Everybody's speculating on why we drafted Connor Cook. We did not draft Connor Cook to be the replacement to Derek Carr. I don't believe that. However, if Derek Carr was to get hurt in the next few years, you know, before or even after his contract, he's an insurance policy. So if it comes to the fact where Derek Carr starts to plateau, he doesn't prove to be our franchise quarterback, or he gets hurt this next year and pretty severely, and Connor Cook shows that he has that ability to be a franchise quarterback, well, now you got options. So I'm going to be first one to say, I'm not going to sit here and judge nobody at this present time. I mean, it's a prove-it league. You know, NFL stands for not for long, and we go year by year to judge our players on our football team. However, I mean, if Connor Cook proves to be the better guy, the way that Carr proved to be better than Schaub, then, you know, I'm all about the team. So that's what makes it so special that we have a guy like Connor Cook with all the hype that he's carrying, because we're in a win-win situation at this point, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think for the first time in a long time, we've got a lot of quality at the quarterback position. I mean, McGloin, Cook, Derek Carr, you've got two guys that have proven that they can play there at that position. I don't put McGloin in the same at the same level as someone like a Derek Carr, but I think Connor Cook has a lot of very similar traits. So we're very strong there. This is what they would call a great problem to have. Our next question comes from Boogie 82. His question is, can Seth Roberts hold on to the slot wide receiver position this year? If not, is there a chance that one of the undrafted guys can do what he did last year and steal a spot? I am not a huge Andre Holmes fan, as he seems one-dimensional in my opinion. What are your guys' thoughts?
That's one of the other great things that I like about this coaching staff is they like to create competition. So they're going to open up all avenues. Now, we pretty much know that even though all avenues will be open, competition in every position, we kind of know for a fact that Derek Carr is going to be our starter. You know, we got Amari Cooper is going to be our first wide receiver, Michael Crabtree our number 2. But as we start to head into that slot, I mean, even though they're going to open up all avenues for everybody, I do believe that this is an opportunity for anybody to slide in. You have to have it that way. You have to have the ability to create competition at every position to keep the level of your play high. So when it comes to me and Seth Roberts, you know, I believe Seth Roberts has the best shot to be the number 3 simply because the chemistry he has already built with Derek Carr last year, the great plays that he already made, you know, the coach is already looking at him to be a playmaker, and you can't teach chemistry. I mean, he's a year ahead of all the younger guys, but there is definitely room for opportunities for some of these undrafted wide receivers to make their mark, you know, whether it be the 5th, 4th, or, you know, in special teams, returning punts. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and it's about what you do with your opportunities that make you the football player you are, not what, you know, sitting back just waiting for someone to offer you something. Go out and get it. So the opportunity's there, but I'll have to give it to Seth Roberts.
Yeah, I agree. I think he did exactly that last year. I think there were some guys on the roster that many people thought were more talented, may have had a little bit more ability, but I think he combined just a lot of the things we talked about with this coaching staff, you know, just, you know, going to guys that had more experience, learning from those guys, understanding, working closely with his coaches, and really believing that he could do it, that he could produce in these big games. He's a guy that took advantage of his opportunities, and we've seen that so many times in the past, guys that were given opportunities and they just never took it. So in my opinion, I'm rooting for this guy. I believe we've got an extremely strong core of guys. You know, I think we have 3 wide receivers that we're going to be covering in a little bit here at the end of the show. Lyon's going to actually be breaking these guys down. But I think we've got a nice little stable of guys that bring some real explosiveness and real talent to this football team. So we're going to have to try to sneak 1 or 2 of these guys, you know, onto the practice squad. But I think that the Raiders understand that there's some real talent there. And again, Roberts did it last year. So it's a really good question, Boogie Boogie. Our next question comes from Raider Sarah. First off, great show night. I love your old format, and this new format is cool too. Props from Germany. With the Osamelli signing, could this challenge not only the Cowgirls offensive line this year, but could it be one of the greatest Raider lines ever assembled? Well, that's a pretty big statement there, Knight. What do you think?
When I first read this question, I had to sit back and think a long time. And as I said over the weeks, I love questions that make me think. And this question did just that. I think it's a little premature to really judge this offensive line, to compare it to an offensive line that had Gene Upshaw, Art Shell, Jim Otto, George Bueller, and John Villa. I mean, that's the greatest offensive line that we ever had. And 3 of those guys are Hall of Famers. Do I see potential for 3 Hall of Famers on this offensive line as it stands? Actually, I do. I believe the middle of the offensive line is very strong with Osamelli, Hudson, and a guy like Gabe Jackson. They're all young. 2 of them are in their second contracts. Gabe Jackson's still working on his first. So they still have the opportunity to make a name for themselves. And they've all shown that they can not only, you know, pass protect, but guys like Osamelli and Hudson made great differences in their previous teams against the opening holes for the running back. So that's the key moving forward. And I do love Donald Penn and Austin Howard or Malik Jackson on the other side, but Donald Penn has put up a great career. I don't see Donald Penn necessarily as a Hall of Famer, but at the same time, you know, I like the middle of this offensive line. So it's a great question, a great debate, but I just don't think the debate can be finished yet here at this present time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has the makings. It has the makings of a great line. Let's not forget the line that you're talking about, Sarah, was a great line. They didn't have the makings of a great line. They put all of the pieces together and they dominated against some of the best defenses around. So we're going to have to see this year how all that turns out. But I certainly like the layout and the makeup that they have created with this offensive line. All right, well, that wraps up our question and answer segment. So we're going to go ahead and go out to break. And when we return, we'll be taking a look at our state of the Raiders, and we'll be looking at the coaching staff this year, talking a little bit about where they came from and hopefully where we think that they may be going. So go ahead and stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
I will conquer my opponent. Defeat will not be in my creed. I will believe where others have doubted. I will always uphold the prestige, honor, and respect of my team. I have trained my mind and my body will follow. Who am I?
I'm a champion.
I will acknowledge the fact that my opponent does not expect me to win, but I will never surrender. Weakness will not be in my heart. I will arrive at the cutting edge of battle and win by any means at my disposal. I accept the fact that my team expects me to move faster and fight harder than our opponent. Never shall I fail my teammates. I will always keep myself mentally alert, physically strong, and morally straight. And I will shoulder more than my share of the task, whatever it may be, 100%. Who am I?
I'm a champion.
Gallantly will I show the world that I am a specially selected and well-trained warrior. My heart and my soul will be the fuel to carry my body when my limbs are too weary. I will never falter. I will never lose focus. As long as there is hope in my mind and my heart still beats, I will never give in to the evil that is weakness, and I will fight that evil with my dying breath. Who am I?
I'm a champion.
Energetically will I meet my opponent. They will not challenge me. They will not stop me from my goal. I shall defeat them on the field of battle, for I am better trained and will fight with all of my might. Defeat, retreat are not a champion's words. I will never leave anything but the very best on the field with my teammates. And under no circumstances will I ever surrender. Who am I?
I'm a champion.
Readily will I display the discipline and strength required to fight forward to my objective and complete that objective. I will rise when I have fallen. I will rip the heart from my opponent and leave it beating on the ground because he cannot stop me. Who am I?
I'm a champion.
My opponent may not fear me, but he will respect me. And if he does not, I will make him respect me with all that I have to give. Who am I?
I'm a champion.
It's our time, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. None will say I've not given all I have to give, and none will take my glory. Who am I?
I'm a champion.
History will remember me. No one will deny me. No one will define me. No one will tell me who and what I am and what I can be. Who am I?
I'm a champion.
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 All right, well, let's kick off our State of the Raiders segment. Every team has a chance at this time of year, a chance to rise above the rest and reach football's crown jewel, the Super Bowl. But getting to the top of the hill, as we talked about in our opening monologue, can be a long and thankless journey. And while the long hours and high-stake job may be worth it in the end, the odds are not in your favor the first or second time around to get a coaching job. In fact, it's a pretty fair bet that the average coach has worked for 3.3 head coaches in the NFL before getting a crack at being the front man for his own team. So, is it experience, what you know, or more about who you know, dumb luck or diligent work that gets you a ticket to the big game? In the NFL, it's usually a combination of both, and the landscape is littered with coaching trees that seem to intertwine. Often, coaches that have never met can come together and be able to think and speak in the same foreign language that is the X's and O's of football. And at other times, chemistry can be the death of even close friendships. With that said, let's take a look at our top 3 guys this year for the Raiders. Jack Del Rio has played for coaches like Mike Ditka, Brian Billick, and John Fox. Every coach he has mentored with has at least appeared in a Super Bowl, with Ditka and Billick both having won their Super Bowls. And while Fox has been to 2 Super Bowls and lost, he has shown the ability to constantly get his teams to play competitive football, as evidenced by his 8 postseason appearances. That's quite a positive list, don't you think so, partner? It's kind of short and sweet, but it's got a really strong pedigree. What do you think?
I believe that's what makes our coaching staff so strong. When you look at all the depth that we have in our main positions and the places that they've been, the coaches that they coached under, whether it be assistants or not, it just leads us to believe that this coaching staff has what it takes to make it happen. Take Jack, for example. I mean, starting off as a strength and conditioning coach under Mike Ditka, that's like, you know, just think about the opportunity this guy has just to be a strength and conditioning coach, but to do it in the presence of a guy like Mike Ditka. The opportunities there are tremendous. I mean, you have a guy like Mike Ditka who shows Jack Del Rio how to handle himself in the locker room, how to hold himself up in front of players and other coaches. Even though a lot of people might look at that as being just a small piece of the puzzle, he's become a leader, a motivator, and it started with Mike Ditka. Then you take him over to where Bill Belichick got his hands on him, and he was just a linebacker coach, right? But he happened to be the linebacker coach to a guy of Ray Lewis' stature. So you look at the 2000 Baltimore Ravens that won the Super Bowl, that was one of the best defense we've ever seen play. And he also got to work with Rex Ryan, someone that I look highly up to as far as, you know, being a defensive coach in this league. I mean, I think that Rex Ryan has the ability of a Dick LeBeau. So, I mean, these are just a few names that Jack Del Rio has had the opportunity to work for. It's great, man. I mean, and then John Fox on top of it. So I just think that when you look at the coaching background that Jack has by himself, it just goes to show that he's a leader of men, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Bill Musgrave? He was with the Carolina Panthers and George Seifert. He was with Al Groh at Virginia, and then Del Rio in Jacksonville. He was also with Joe Gibbs in Washington. He spent some time in Atlanta and Minnesota, where Adrian Peterson had his 2,000-yard season. And then he kind of wrapped it up with Chip Kelly before coming to the Raiders. I mean, that's a lot of different philosophies. How do you feel about that? I mean, trying to intertwine all those different types of strategies.
Well, it's not easy to do, right? When you look at Bill Musgrave and everywhere that he's been, you have to understand that this guy has probably seen more than he needed to. I mean, all these different philosophies, all these different players and personnel groups. In some senses, you could say, hey, this could work out. I mean, he could work with different personnel, different players, different styles. But at the same time, it could also make him really confused. That's why this whole offseason, we talked a lot about Bill Musgrave being the question mark moving forward. We really don't know off of last season, was it Bill Musgrave? Was it a personnel issue? You know, all we know is that Bill Musgrave has an opportunity here to make a name for himself. I believe in the players that he has now. But are we going to believe in Bill Musgrave's system and philosophy to get the job done?
Yeah, I mean, that's there's some things I guess that you like, and then there's some things I think that you kind of scratch your head about. I mean, you know, Joe Gibbs and Chip Kelly are probably as far apart as you could think of in terms of their offensive philosophy. So it's going to be interesting, like you said, to figure out whether or not injuries or the types of players that they were able to go out and get are going to fit his system a little more. What do you think about some of those players, like the running back situation, for example? I mean, do you think that he's going to, or even the offensive line, do you think he's going to ground and pound a little bit more and get a little more to that Minnesota style, or do you think that he's going to try to open it up and up tempo it a little more like he did or like Chip Kelly did in Philadelphia?
I believe that's the goal. This team wants to run the football. No matter where Bill Musgrave has been, I know what Jack Del Rio wants. Jack Del Rio wants some old school ground and pound in the trenches football, whether it be offense or defense. So the plan here moving forward is to get Latavius Murray going, but also to bring in a guy like DeAndre Washington that could give you a mixture of everything from, you know, running screens and running sweeps and running more off tackle, but Latavius Murray, you know, to hit the big holes and try to hit the home run. That's exactly why they brought in Kelechi Osemele. So yeah, I do believe that they want to run the football. It's just how they run the football is the issue. We can't be running Murray out of the shotgun.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. All right, well, let's take a look at Ken Norton. He's probably got the least experience, having only coached professionally under Pete Carroll. But I think it's important to note that Pete Carroll worked under George Seifert in his stint with the 49ers as the defensive coordinator. And while some may say that Pete Carroll was more influenced by guys like Monty Kiffin in college, it's safe to say that he learned a few wrinkles from George Seifert. And also that Ken Norton was a key player on Seifert's '94 Super Bowl defense. So it's also a good bet that Norton, like Pete Carroll, learned a few things from guys like Seifert and Jimmy Johnson in Dallas. As a position coach, he's also been instrumental in developing 3 back-to-back Rose Bowl MVPs, you know, Cushing, Malawaga, and Mieva. So how do you think, do you think that the philosophies that he's learned and the philosophies that Jack Del Rio have learned, do you think that they kind of mold fairly well, or do you think that they're a little more on opposite sides of the coin?
I believe the defensive side of the ball, the coaching staff in general, is just right where we need them to be. All the way from Jack Del Rio and his connections between Ditka, Bellick, Rex Ryan, John Fox, like we mentioned. And when you get into Ken Norton Jr., now you're looking at just one coach, right? Pete Carroll. But Pete Carroll can be connected to Seifert. Seifert connected to the 49ers. So you got a tie in there with Ken Norton Jr. and Pete Carroll. And then furthermore, you go back to the USC days where at the time when Pete Carroll was in USC, they were dominating the college ranks. So Ken Norton was a part of that. So whether it's Monty Kiffin or whether it's Pete Carroll himself, it's fair to say that the pedigree that is Pete Carroll, along with the pedigree of what is Jack Del Rio, John Fox, etc., all plays a big part in this. And I found it really interesting this week when I was taking a look at all the defensive coaches that, you could tie every single, I can't say that, excuse me, not every single assistant or coach on the defense, but all the key players, linebacker coach, defensive line coach, Ken Norton, they all have a tie to either USC and Pete Carroll or John Fox or some familiarity to that. They're all connected in some way to Pete Carroll, I would say. So that's why we tend to rest our hat on a lot that this Raider defense is going to look like a similar form of what Seattle runs, but just a hybrid of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have the same types of philosophies because obviously they came from the same coaching trees at their roots. But, there's another really interesting thing here. Our Oakland Raiders are the only team with former NFL players as the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, and incredibly enough, also the general manager. Head coach Del Rio, our defensive coordinator Ken Norton Jr., and Bill Musgrave, as well as position coaches like Rod Woodson, Mike Tice, Rob Moore, and Bernie Parmalee have all laced it up on Sundays, while lifer coaches like Brad Seeley and Todd Downing and even Sal Sunseri are all great teachers, motivators, and position innovators. They may not have played on Sundays, but they've been around a long time. This staff seems to have that across the board. I mean, they've got good quality veteran leadership with a vision, along with up-and-coming young talent that keeps getting better and better as they gel. Now, most teams might have that on their coaching staff or maybe a strong core of veterans on the field, but this particular team seems to be loaded on the field and off the field. How important is it for these guys to share the same vision and to buy into the plan that Del Rio and the staff is laying at their feet? Is it easier because these guys have played in the NFL? They've played these positions?
The fact that they have played these positions stand large in my mind. I mean, you have to take in consideration, there's a few different levels here, right? There's the coaching, the teaching part. When you're a coach, you want to be a teacher. What's the best way that you could teach is to understand it just from both sides, right? You're understanding now, hey, this is the way I need to teach it because this is the way I needed to hear it. So players versus coaches, they're relating to each other. I mean, all these guys have not only played the game, most of them played at a very high level. Rod Woodson, Hall of Famer, Marcus Robinson is an All-Pro, Rob Moore, All-Pro, you got Mike Tice, All-Pro. I mean, all these guys have a pedigree of not only just playing the game, but playing at a high level. Then you take that into where they come from, their coaching trees, especially the core, Jack Del Rio and Ken Norton on the defensive side of the ball. You mix that in with just the knowledge that these guys have from understanding the film room, for being a player, and now teaching it as a coach. You mix that in with some of these guys that may have not played the game, but they've been teaching this game for a long time. So it's a combination of great teaching, great playmaking ability to understanding, they played it, they did it themselves on the field. Now they're teaching it off the field. This is one of the main reasons why I got a lot of high expectations, especially for this team on defense, because when you look at the defensive side of the ball, it's surrounded by a pedigree of guys that have taught at many different places for a long period of time, led by some great men who played at a very high level and have already been shown that they could teach the game. I look at a guy like Marcus Robinson as something that's been talked about the last few years, and it was quoted by the great Charles Woodson, who said that he wanted to come back and play for the Raiders if they kept Marcus Robinson, because he not only was he an All-Pro, but he was able to teach an old vet like Charles Woodson something every day, and Charles Woodson was excited about that. That speaks volumes to me when a player can give an ex-player like that the credit to say, because, Charles Woodson's a Hall of Famer in his own right. So for him to be able to say, this guy's teaching me something, that speaks volume of just what it takes to be a player and now a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty amazing to me that we actually have a Hall of Famer on this staff. I mean, we've had Hall of Famers on our coaching staff before, but again, I think the combination of the coaches who've played along with some Hall of Fame experience and some guys that have been in the league for a long time is great. But there are some guys that are relative unknowns, I guess, like unrestricted free or undrafted free agents, if you would. Is there anybody like Bobby Johnson or assistant QB coach Jake Peets? Do you see any up-and-comers? I mean, let's not forget, like you said, Del Rio started out as a strength and conditioning coach. Is there anybody on this staff that you think might be a hot commodity at some point in the future?
At this point, when I look at the staff, I mean, it's really too early to tell, right? I mean, some of these guys, like the strength and conditioning coaches and so on, I don't think the opportunity has been there for them yet to really not only develop these players on the field, but have enough time with guys like Jack Del Rio. So in time, we will tell. But one guy that the only guy that really stands out to me as I'm looking at this team moving forward is a guy like Ken Norton Jr. He has the pedigree under Pete Carroll. Now he's working with Jack Del Rio, and this is his first opportunity as a defensive coordinator. And I know he had his struggles last year, but you saw improvement towards the end of the season. You know, you give a good season for him this year under his belt, and then possibly one more after that, we could be saying goodbye to Ken Norton Jr. sooner rather than we want to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's also the nature of the NFL is as soon as somebody starts having some success, other teams and other owners, general managers are going to swoop in and kind of take them away. So, well, I mean, like I said, it's a fantastic group. I think that they've assembled. They've got youth, they've got experience, they've got passion, they've got all the things that you look for in a staff that is going to build a solid foundation and continue to keep on building for years and years to come. Well, folks, that's our look at the state of the Raiders, the beginning look at our coaching staff anyways, and we will be looking more and more into the coaching staff, also into defensive schemes and the types of players that they're looking for in future episodes. So do be sure to stay tuned. We're going to go ahead and go out to a break now. And when we return, we'll be looking at our rookie bio this week, an undrafted section. We're going to be looking at a couple of wide receivers, one of whom we think just might make this team this year. Stay tuned.
MMM Carpets is celebrating the holidays with a huge inventory clearance sale. We have the best prices and guaranteed installation. Why would you buy anywhere else? Whether you're looking for laminate, vinyl, carpet, tile, or wood, we have it all. Save up to 50% on selected items. Room size rugs, only $69. Visit MMM Carpets at one of our 6 Bay Area locations or call us at 1-800-355-4MMM.
All right, once again, let's go ahead and send it across the pond to Raider Lion. Max, the floor is yours.
After last week I summarised the Oakland Raiders draft class. Now we're going to be focusing on the undrafted free agents. And most notably, we're going to start off with 3 wide receivers that all have the potential of making the roster. These 3 players are Jaden Mickens, Max McCaffrey, and Joe Hansley. First off, Jaden Mickens. Out of Washington, he is most notable for his speed, acceleration and burst, and that ability to go deep and win in that area. Not only that, but he's also been able to play a wildcat, which means that he's taken the role of a halfback or running back at times if the quarterback wanted a rest play or anything like that. So therefore, I would even go as far as to compare him to Randall Cobb. That is the talent I believe the Oakland Raiders have been able to get with him, even though he's an undrafted free agent. At his 4-year career at Washington, he had 2,187 yards, receiving yards, and 12 touchdowns. A considerably notable performance. Yet, even though it may be considered low at times, as he's only averaging below 550 yards a season, it has been notably seen that the quarterback play has resulted in lower receiving yards over his years at Washington. And also he has shown at times excellent potential that hopefully an elite quarterback such as Derek Carr is going to be able to get out of him. Jaden Mickens' most notable talent is his quickness and his speed. the ability to get off the line fast and get a step on the defender, and hopefully create some space where he's going to go. If you want to look at a pro-level equivalent, it's Deshaun Jackson. I'm not comparing Jaden Mickens to Deshaun Jackson, I believe there's a way off, but that kind of play style is what Jaden Mickens will hopefully be able to emulate in the future. Yet you're looking at a guy who was perceived to be a 5th, 6th or 7th round pick in the draft that went undrafted and the Raiders were able to pick him up. He's shown at times during training camp that he's definitely worth this rating of a 5th round pick, and I would potentially say that he is the most likely out of the 3 wide receivers I'll be mentioning in this video to make the roster, even as a kick or punt returner. Max McCaffrey, standing at 6'2", from Duke, is most notably famous for having his father at Denver and his famous brother Christian McCaffrey from Stanford, who everyone will probably know as the Heisman Trophy favourite in this upcoming. He caught 52 passes, 643 yards and 5 touchdowns in this past year, and he has totaled 115 receptions, 1,310 yards and 12 touchdowns during his final 3 seasons at Duke. During his testing, he was able to post a 4.46 40-yard dash, which is exactly what you want for a receiver. He's been able to show at times, especially you've seen during training camp, but also on tape, the quickness as well, and the ability to create separation in certain situations. Not only that, with his height being 6'2", he's able to go get the ball and high point it at the highest point of the route, which means it's more likely to be a completion and away from a defender. According to Pro Football Focus, he was one of the best undrafted free agent wide receivers available, and the Oakland Raiders were lucky to get him. Numerous sources have said that Max McCaffrey is one of the favourites, if not the favourite, to make the Oakland Raiders roster, most notably Bleacher Report and NFL.com. After signing with the Oakland Raiders, Max McCaffrey even said that it was the best choice for him, and hopefully it's going to be the best choice for the Oakland Raiders, as they are going to get a receiver who's, even though he's undrafted, hopefully he'll follow the progression pattern that we've seen in Seth Roberts, and I truly believe he can do that, as he's shown on tape multiple times the talent required to succeed in the NFL. The last receiver I'll be talking about is Joe Hansley, the underdog. 5'8", 175 pounds from Colorado State. Multiple times during training camp, even though he's an undrafted free agent, people have raved about him. I have even made a video on my channel describing the fact how Derek Carr and Jack Del Rio have talked multiple times how he's a potential star in the making and that he's shown talent time and time again. Even though this is without pads, it should be noted that this talent should make people excited. And the fact that Derek Carr is talking about him as a breakout star for the future, it should be heavily noted and regarded for the future as a potential star in the making. He's an extremely experienced player at the college level who is very agile and able to elude players very easily. He has natural hands, yet even though his size is a downside standing at 5'8", he more than makes up for that in grit, determination and the skill of his hands, as already mentioned. He's able to catch most balls wherever they are around his body, and he's done some spectacular catches over his college career. Even at times, scouts have called him a running back at times due to the fact that he's very hard to bring down with the ball in his hands. Combined with the fact that he has good route running, means that if he was a little bit taller, he's the perfect wide receiver package. Even though he was primarily used on inside routes, curls, digs and slants, he has played outside and is able to run a multitude of routes, which means he's going to be able to get time regardless of the position of wide receiver on the field for the Oakland Raiders. I think he's the most likely candidate, in my opinion, to make the Oakland Raiders roster, due to the fact that not only is he experienced and talented, and the fact that he is a capable receiver, but the fact that I think he's the most likely to play kick or punt returner. It's challenging to say that he will be the one to make it, considering the fact that he is so small and so unknown by people. But the fact that he has been talked about by so many people as a star in the making fills me with a lot of confidence that in the coming seasons he is going to be the breakout star that we hope for out of this undrafted free agent class. He does have an uphill battle, but hopefully with the right coaching and the right training, especially from elite players at the Oakland Raiders level and veterans to guide along the way, such as Michael Crabtree, and also Seth Roberts, who has gone through the process of being an undrafted free agent and seemingly make it in the NFL. Hopefully any of these three receivers are going to have the chance to succeed in the league, and all of them, Max McCaffrey, Jaden Mickens and Joe Hansley, have shown over their time on tape and during training camp the ability to succeed, and hopefully they will demonstrate these skills time and time again during pre-season and potentially even on the roster during the regular season.
Well, folks, that's our show for tonight. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed doing it for you, the Raider Nation. We always like to end our show with an invitation to become part of our community by joining us for the after show at 6:30 live on YouTube, where we'll be taking your phone calls and talking about the show. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel and to like us on Facebook, as it means that you like our content and it helps us to keep you up to date when our latest videos are uploaded. So until next time, live a life of passion and purpose on your terms. And remember, one nation, First Nation, Raider Nation.
That would burn brightest here is the will to win. Is the will to win. Is the will to win.
Your commitment to excellence and your will to win will endure forever. You were magnificent.
Let's go, boys. Let's go. Let's do our thing now.
The autumn wind is a pirate.
Clark feeling pressure in front of him, has his man, it's Cooper. Cooper inside the 10, into the end zone for the Raiders, touchdown.
We're going to challenge you from the neck up this afternoon.
They're target a lot for the end zone for Roberts. He's got it. Touchdown! Raiders!
Within the first 5 to 10 plays of the game, the other team's quarterback must go down. And he must go down hard.
Sacked from behind by Khalil Mack.